Imagine floating in the infinite blackness of space, a tiny human speck against the vastness of the cosmos. This was the breathtaking reality for astronaut Ed White on June 3, 1965. His mission: to become the first American to walk in space. This wasn't just a stroll. It was a leap into the unknown, a moment that would redefine humanity's place in the universe. But what you might not know is that this beautiful, historic moment was just seconds away from turning into a disaster. The Gemini 4 mission, commanded by James McDivitt with Ed White as the pilot, was a crucial step in the space race. Just a few months earlier, Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov had performed the first spacewalk. America had to respond, and the pressure was immense. The plan was for White to spend about 20 minutes outside the Gemini capsule, tethered by a 25-foot umbilical cord that supplied him with oxygen and communications. As the Gemini 4 spacecraft orbited Earth at over 17,000 miles per hour, the moment arrived. The cabin was depressurized, and McDivitt struggled with a stubborn hatch. For a few tense minutes, it seemed the spacewalk might not happen at all. But with a final heave, the hatch swung open, revealing the stunning spectacle of our planet below. White, holding a handheld maneuvering unit, pushed himself out into the void. The view was, in his own words, spectacular. He saw the curve of the Earth, the brilliant blue of the oceans, and the swirling white of the clouds. He floated, tumbled, and somersaulted with a joy that was palpable even through the crackle of his radio transmission. He described it as the most comfortable he'd ever felt. He used his gas-powered gun to propel himself, gracefully maneuvering in the weightless environment. For those watching back on Earth, it was a vision of pure freedom, a human ballet set against the backdrop of stars. While White was having the time of his life, a different kind of drama was unfolding. Back inside the capsule, McDivitt was wrestling with his own challenges. The spacecraft was drifting, and keeping it stable while his crewmate floated outside was a delicate, demanding task. Every movement White made affected the capsule's orientation. McDivitt had to fire the thrusters carefully to keep the umbilical cord from getting tangled or putting too much strain on White. It was an incredibly complex dance between two astronauts, separated by just a few feet but in entirely different worlds. Then came the first sign of trouble. The planned 20-minute spacewalk was coming to an end. Mission Control in Houston gave the order for White to come back inside. But Ed White was so captivated by the experience that he didn't want it to end. He famously replied, "This is the saddest moment of my life." He was enjoying himself so much, he delayed his return. As he lingered, a more serious problem developed. His maneuvering gun ran out of fuel. Without it, he had to rely on pulling himself along the tether to get back to the capsule. This was much more difficult and physically demanding than anyone had anticipated. As he pulled, his body would twist and turn in unpredictable ways, a frustrating consequence of Newton's third law. Meanwhile, another issue was brewing. His communication line with McDivitt started to fail. For long, agonizing stretches, McDivitt couldn't hear White, and White couldn't hear him. The reassuring voice from inside the capsule was gone, leaving White truly alone in the vast emptiness. He was wrestling with his tether, trying to pull himself back to a tiny open hatch, with no one to guide him. Panic could have easily set in, but both astronauts were test pilots, trained to remain calm under extreme pressure. McDivitt, struggling with his own controls and a failing radio, had to make a critical decision. He couldn't see White clearly. Was he struggling? Was he in danger? He had to trust his training and his crewmate's skill. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, White reached the hatch. But his ordeal wasn't over. Getting back inside proved to be just as hard as getting out. His body, pushed by the slight pressure from his suit, wanted to float away. He had to contort himself to fit through the narrow opening, all while managing the bulky life support pack on his chest and the unwieldy umbilical cord. It was a slow, exhausting process. Then came the final, terrifying moment. After White was finally back inside, the hatch wouldn't close. The locking mechanism was jammed. They were stuck in orbit with the door to space wide open. If they couldn't seal the hatch, they couldn't repressurize the cabin. And if they couldn't do that, they would not survive re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. The heat would incinerate them. For several heart-stopping minutes, McDivitt and White worked together in the cramped cabin, trying to force the latch closed. Their oxygen was running low. The ground controllers listened in silence, helpless. The triumphant spacewalk was now a fight for survival. With their combined strength, putting all their weight against the mechanism, they felt a click. The hatch was sealed. A wave of relief washed over the astronauts and everyone in mission control. They had made it. Ed White's spacewalk lasted 36 minutes, far longer than planned, and it pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. But it also exposed the hidden dangers of working in space. It showed NASA that spacewalks weren't just graceful floats, they were physically demanding and fraught with unforeseen technical problems. The issues with the tether, the maneuvering unit, the communications, and the hatch provided invaluable, life-saving lessons. These lessons were directly applied to future missions, leading to better equipment, improved training, and more robust procedures. The handrails and foot restraints you see astronauts use on the International Space Station today. Those are direct descendants of the hard lessons learned during Gemini 4. Ed White's struggle to get back inside the capsule proved that astronauts needed something to hold onto, something to anchor themselves against. Tragically, Ed White, along with his Apollo 1 crewmates Gus Grissom and Roger Chaffee, would lose his life in a fire on the launch pad just 2 years later. But his legacy as the first American spacewalker endures. He was a pioneer who stepped out into the void with courage and a sense of wonder. His journey, filled with both beauty and peril, paved the way for every spacewalk that followed, from the Apollo moonwalks to the construction of the International Space Station. So, the next time you see footage of an astronaut floating serenely outside a spacecraft, remember Ed White. Remember the joy on his face, but also remember the silent, desperate struggle to get the hatch closed. It is a powerful reminder that every great achievement is built on moments of incredible risk and unyielding bravery. Thank you for watching. If you found this story of space exploration as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button. And subscribe for more tales of human ingenuity and courage. Let me know in the comments what other space missions you'd like to hear about. Until next time, keep looking up.